Hello and welcome to my Criterion D fitness level reflection. First of all, how did I interact with my client? I interacted with my client in several ways. First of all, I interviewed him at the start of the unit to find out information such as his goal and the sport he's trying to improve his skills in. Also, throughout the 4 weeks, I was in contact with him personally during school and also by emails to discuss any questions and concerns he had in terms of the workout. During workouts in school, it is very important to keep your client motivated, especially for me, as I set my intensity of the workout very high, which would lead my client to be very discouraged as he might not fully be able to do the activity in the first try. The ways I motivated him was by blatantly screaming at him, saying, client, you can do it, and that emotionally motivated him to continue and actually finish what he was told to do. How did I deal with conflict? Well, my client was pretty civilized, so we didn't have much conflict during this unit. The greatest conflict would be misunderstanding in terms of the workout that he was given, and as I said earlier, communication is the key in solving these kind of issues. So he either asked me in class or sent me an email asking, what this or that means. Mainly during classes, during workout sessions, during the classes, it would always be very important for me to give my client feedback in order for him to improve not only his skills and abilities, but also his techniques to then further improve his skills and abilities. This could be, directly as he's doing them. I would tell him if he's doing something wrong or if he could do it in a better way, maybe with a higher intensity, if I think he's capable of doing it the way he is doing it now. So yeah. So at the start of the unit, when we did our fitness tests, including the beep test, the push-up test, the squat test, and the sit-up test, the 3 last tests being as many as he could do in the first minute, he performed like an average 16-year-old male. He got a slightly above average score of 5.4 for the beep test, an average score of 36 push-ups, an average score of 28 squats, and a slightly below average score of 18 sit-ups, all in 1 minute. So ultimately the goals that I set him were, first of all, for the beep test, a 7, for the push-up test, 45, for the squat test, 40, and for the sit-up test, 30, which all might seem very high. However, in my opinion, I was thinking that, first of all, he would improve because of the workout, but also he would have the extra motivation because of the 4 weeks working with his personal trainer, which would be me. So at the end, he wouldn't just be fitter in general, but he would also have extra motivation because he worked throughout all those weeks to actually improve at the end. And I thought he was very capable of doing these things, so I thought it would be a fair goal. In the end, my client performed very well, surpassing 3 of the 4 goals that I set him personally. As I said, I set them very high, and probably the reason why he didn't succeed in all 4 was because we only had 4 weeks of actually doing the workout. So if we would have maybe had 5 or a bit more, I believe that he would have achieved and successfully, surpassed all the goals a lot more than he did now. So he got a 7.4 in the beep test, 42 against 36 previously in the push-up test, 43 against 28 previously in the squat test, and 36 against 18 previously in the squat test. All those being much higher than his original scores, but only slightly higher than the set goals. As I discussed, I set these goals in order to, these very high goals, in order to push him further than he might think he could physically, simply because he doesn't just do it for himself, but he also has a teammate or a personal coach that he has to prove himself to, which obviously is a whole competitive sort of thing, which motivates him extra to achieve those goals. So that's why I set those very high standards for him. So, was it a goal that can be achieved? Well, as 3 of the 4 goals were achieved, I believe that, yes, they are very well achievable. And is it challenging enough? Yes, again, it was, as one of them wasn't achieved. And as I mentioned, the reason for that was probably that we didn't have quite enough time, and because most of the intense workout was actually done within the classes, and we don't have many PE classes. However, he did work at home on the things, which I found very impressive. How did I perform as a personal trainer? Personally, I believe that I performed average to well as being a personal trainer, as I set him very high goals that I personally thought he might not achieve. However, I set them that high because, as I mentioned, it would extra motivate him. And in the end, he did manage to succeed, surpass the goals quite well, which surprised me, showing that my ways of motivating him by screaming at him are quite effective. And yeah, I guess this shows that my personal training skills are quite adequate. So, what did I do well? Well, as I've mentioned several times earlier, I believe that my strongest skill is motivating my client directly, as we're both boys, and boys like to be competitive. And for whatever psychological reason, being screamed at really helps to push that adrenaline and helps you to sort of push your limits to something you might not have thought you're able to do. So during especially his sit-ups, which he was not very comfortable doing, I kept on screaming at the top of my lungs at him, saying he can do it. Also screaming, counting the actual numbers, saying, 1 push-up, 2 push-up, 3 push-up. That really helped him sort of push himself to do one more, and in the end achieve his goal. What did I not do well? One thing I did not do as well as I could have was my workout plan. My plan was not extremely detailed, not as detailed as it could have been, meaning that he had to come to me and ask me several times what something meant, because I was sort of writing it as it was for myself, meaning that certain terms were clear to me but maybe not to other people. However, what compensated for that was the good communication between us, so he could easily just ask me about something, and then I could tell him immediately. Did I use my interpersonal skills to motivate my client? I believe that I've already answered this question several times during this recording. Again, with the motivation, screaming at him always helps. Also setting high goals and telling him that I'm setting high goals so that he can impress me later. That also helps, as he's sort of trying to prove himself, and that seems to work with boys. If I had the chance to fundamentally change something, that would be 2 things. First of all, the amount of periods of PE we have a week in school, as this was the time at least my client, worked on the workout the most, as it gave us the most tools, equipment, and also time with me to tell him his improvements and what he should do. Second of all would be my plan. As I've expressed earlier, my plan was not always the clearest, meaning that he had to ask me, but I said that our communication skills compensated for that. Besides the obvious muscle groups and the specifications of sports like sport and fit, besides those fundamental sports things, I've learned that a well-rounded workout is very important, such as keeping muscular strength and muscular endurance the same, as they both affect each other. I've also learned how to motivate my client by screaming at him, and also how to create a plan like this, as I'm actually planning to go to the gym soon, regularly, and maybe I could create something like this for myself, which I would find very useful. And the final question, did my client achieve their fitness goal? Well, his goal was very broad. It was to improve his upper body and also leg strength for handball, which is the game he plays. We didn't test his goal in terms of his fitness goal, in terms of improving his strength for handball, but instead we tested it against the fitness test we all did in class, which was sort of a fundamental test, which would test all groups of his body. So this has been my reflection for Criterion D of the fitness unit. I hope you've enjoyed, and thank you.